The engine coughed once, twice, then died. David's grip tightened on the steering wheel as the dashboard went dark, the soft hum of the heater vanishing into a hollow, freezing silence. Outside, the Alaskan night pressed against the windshield like a living thing. Snow swept sideways in wild, blinding sheets, erasing the road ahead and the world behind. For a moment he just sat there, staring through the glass, willing the truck to come back to life. "Dad?" Emma's small voice trembled from the back seat. She was wrapped in a blanket up to her chin, only her eyes visible. Beside her, Luke clutched his stuffed fox, its fur worn thin from years of love. "It's okay, sweetheart," David said, forcing calm into his voice as his breath fogged up the air. "The truck just needs a minute." He turned the key again. Click. Nothing. A third time. Still nothing. The silence that followed was the loudest sound he had ever heard. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, a low, angry moan that sent a chill deeper than the cold itself. Snow clung to the mirrors, to the hood, to the dark outlines of the forest that surrounded the narrow road. There were no lights, no houses, no passing cars, only an endless white darkness closing in. He checked the phone in his hand even though he already knew. No signal. Not a single bar. "It's getting cold," Luke whispered. David glanced back at them. Their cheeks were already pink, their noses red. He pushed the creeping fear down into his stomach and forced a small smile. "We've got blankets. We're okay." He reached behind the seat, pulling out another coat, draping it around Emma's shoulders. She looked at him with the same eyes her mother had once looked at him with. Wide. Trusting, afraid, but trying not to be. He swallowed hard. He hadn't planned on this trip tonight. He'd only driven into town to get a few groceries, a small toy for Luke, some coloring pencils for Emma. Christmas was only days away. Without Sarah, every holiday felt like something he had to survive rather than celebrate. The cabin was too quiet these days, too empty. The snow had started on his way back. Light at first, then heavier, then dangerous. Now here they were, stranded in the middle of nowhere, in the heart of Alaska, in the dead of night. "Dad!" Emma's voice was smaller now. "Are we going to die?" His chest tightened painfully. "No," he said quickly. "Of course not. We're just waiting until help comes." A lie so thin it almost broke as it left his lips. He looked out through the windshield again, desperation creeping into his thoughts. If he stayed here, they would freeze. If he left the truck, he had no idea where to go. The wind shook the vehicle, rocking it gently like a warning. Then he saw it. At first he thought it was his imagination, just a trick of the swirling snow. But it appeared again, a faint warm glow somewhere between the trees on the right side of the road. "A light. Do you see that?" Emma whispered. He nodded slowly. His heart began to pound harder. Faster? Hope? Dangerous hope, but hope all the same. "Stay here," he said. "I'm just going to check something." "No," Luke cried instantly, his small hand reaching out. "Don't leave us. I won't go far. I'll be right there." He forced a smile again. "You stay together. Don't open the doors. I promise I'll be right back." He stepped out of the truck, the cold slicing into him instantly, biting through his jacket, his jeans straight to his bones. Snow swallowed his boots up to his ankles. The wind knocked the breath out of his chest. He turned toward the faint glow. It flickered again. He started walking. Each step was heavier than the last. The snow fought back, trying to keep him. Ice stung his cheeks, his eyes watering so badly he could barely see. But the light grew stronger, warmer, real. A shape began to form behind the trees. A cabin, small, tucked into the woods, almost hidden beneath thick layers of snow. From one narrow window a golden light glowed against the black night. Smoke drifted up from the chimney, bending in the storm. Someone was there. Relief hit him so hard his knees nearly buckled. He stumbled up to the porch and raised his hand to knock, but the door opened before his knuckles touched the wood. A woman stood there. For a second all he could do was stare. She looked to be in her early 30s maybe. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose braid. She wore a thick sweater, sleeves rolled just slightly above her wrists. Her eyes, a deep and curious green, scanned him from head to toe, taking in the snow clinging to his clothes. The fear he clearly wasn't hiding very well. "You're freezing," she said. Her voice was steady, not shocked, not afraid. My truck." He struggled against the cold. "My kids. They're in the car about 100 yards back. It broke down." She didn't hesitate, not even for a second. "Get them. Now," she said. "I'll start the fire higher." He turned and ran back toward the road, lungs burning, heart racing. When he reached the truck, Emma and Luke looked at him through the frosted glass, their faces lighting up as he opened the door. "There's a house. Someone's there. Hurry." They didn't ask questions. They climbed out, trembling, their small hands gripping his arms as an anchor. He took them both, one on each side, and guided them through the storm toward the light. When they reached the porch, the woman was already holding quilts and blankets, steam rising from the open door behind her. "Oh my God," she whispered when she saw them. "Come inside, please." The warmth hit them the moment they crossed the threshold. It wasn't just heat, it was life. The smell of burning wood, something sweet and earthy simmering on the stove, the crackle of fire, a small safe bubble in the middle of a merciless storm. She closed the door and locked it, shutting out the howling wind. Emma exhaled shakily. Luke immediately sank down beside the fireplace, stretching his frozen hands toward the flames. "You're safe now," the woman said, already kneeling to wrap a quilt around Emma's tiny shoulders. David stood there for a moment, stunned by the sudden contrast. Cold death outside, warm life inside. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. "I didn't know what else to do." "You came to the only light for miles," she replied softly. "You did exactly what you were supposed to." She looked up at him then, really looked at him, as if only now realizing he was more than just a desperate stranger on her porch. "I'm Anna," she said. "David." Her eyes flicked to the children. "And these must be the two bravest kids in Alaska." "I'm Emma," his daughter said shyly. "I'm Luke," his son added, hugging the fox to his chest. Anna smiled at them in a way that made something twist painfully inside David's chest. It was gentle, maternal, familiar in a way he hadn't felt in over 2 years. "Well, Emma and Luke, you picked the right cabin tonight," she said, "because nobody's freezing on my watch." She stood and moved quickly, pouring hot tea into mugs, spooning out warm soup into bowls. Every movement was confident, practiced, as if taking care of others was as natural to her as breathing. David watched, almost lost for a moment. He'd forgotten how that felt. To see a woman moving in a kitchen. To hear a soft hum of comfort beneath the clatter of utensils. "You need to sit," Anna said, nodding at his stiff, shaking frame. "Before you drop." He obeyed without arguing. The chair was rough wood, but it felt like sanctuary. Luke was already slurping soup carefully. Emma cradled her mug with both hands, eyes wide as if afraid this warmth might disappear. "When was the last time you all ate something hot?" Anna asked gently. David hesitated. "This morning." She said nothing, simply nodded, but her gaze softened even more. Outside the storm raged on, screaming against the walls of the little cabin. Inside the fire roared, defiant, alive. "You're lucky you even saw this place," Anna said quietly. "Most people don't notice it in good weather, let alone a blizzard." David glanced around. It was small but cared for. Clean. A few shelves lined with books. Dried herbs hanging along the wall. On one side of the room, a little wooden carving of a wolf sat on a window ledge. "You live out here alone?" he asked. Anna looked away for a brief second. Almost too brief. Then nodded. Yes, something unspoken lingered in that one word. "How long?" he asked softly. Long enough to forget what silence is supposed to sound like. He didn't press. He didn't need to. He understood too well what loneliness felt like, how it crept into a person's bones. The children finished their soup. Emma yawned, her head beginning to dip. Anna noticed instantly. "There's a bed in the back room," she said. "Clean sheets, soft. They can sleep there tonight." David opened his mouth to protest, but the words died when he saw Emma already half asleep in Luke's arms. "Thank you," he whispered again. "You've said that enough," Anna replied with a faint smile. "Just let them rest." He carried Emma while Luke followed sleepily behind. The small room was warm, simple, a neatly made bed, a thick quilt folded carefully at the foot. It smelled faintly of lavender. As he tucked his children in, Emma's hand reached up and lightly clutched his shirt. "Dad," she murmured. "She's nice." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "Yes," he whispered. "She is." When he stepped back into the main room, Anna was pouring more tea. She offered him a cup without a word. Their fingers brushed. It was subtle, accidental, but both of them felt it. Neither pulled away too quickly this time. "Storm like this could last all night," she said quietly. "Then we're in your debt for the night," he replied. Anna looked at the flickering fire, then back at him. "No," she said softly. "Tonight, we're just two people who refuse to let the cold win." Their eyes locked for a moment too long. Outside the wind howled. But inside that little cabin, for the first time in a very long time, David didn't feel alone. And Anna, for the first time in years, felt something knocking at the door of her life again. The storm did not soften through the night. If anything, it grew angrier, as if testing the strength of the small, stubborn cabin tucked in its path. David lay on the narrow couch near the fire, staring up at the dark wooden beams of the ceiling. Every once in a while, a hard gust of wind would rattle the walls, and the old structure would groan in answer. The sound should have frightened him. It should have kept him tense, ready, alert. Instead, he felt still. The fire crackled low beside him, a gentle, living thing. Anna had added more wood before going to the loft above the small storage room, insisting he take the couch. He had tried to argue. She'd given him a look that said the argument was over before it began. "You have kids to keep warm," she had said, already climbing the small ladder. So he lay there now, listening. To the storm. To the faint, steady breathing of his children behind the closed door. And to something else, softer. The barely there footfalls above him. The soft shift of fabric. The sigh that came from Anna's chest in the quiet darkness, heavy with thoughts she did not share. He wondered what kind of life had led her here, to this remote place, alone, keeping lamps burning for strangers who might never come. He wondered how long it had been since she had shared a space with another human for more than an hour. He wondered how long she had been carrying her loneliness the way he carried his. Sleep eventually found him, not because he felt safe in the world, but because for the first time in 2 years, he felt safe in a place. He woke before dawn. The storm had finally exhausted itself sometime in the early hours. An icy silence filled the air around the cabin, the kind that comes when the world has been stripped bare and left untouched, covered in a thick white hush. David opened his eyes to pale light slipping through the frosted window. For a moment he panicked. He didn't recognize the room, the year, the life. Then he heard it. A small laugh, the familiar voice of Luke, the softer one of Emma, and another, a different voice. "You're getting flour everywhere," Anna said, laughing gently. "It's snow," Emma corrected confidently. "But inside." "That might be the most normal answer I've ever heard in my life," Anna replied. David pushed himself up slowly, his joints stiff, his spine aching from the couch. But when he stepped into the small kitchen space, the sight before him made the pain melt away. Luke stood on a small stool by the counter, his cheeks dusted with flour, his nose white, grinning from ear to ear. Emma sat at the table, rolling a small lump of dough back and forth in her palms as if it were a treasure. And Anna stood between them, showing Luke how to knead the bread, her hands guiding his tiny ones with gentle patience. For one fleeting, dangerous second, it looked like a family, a real one, not a broken one tied together by memory and grief, but a living, breathing one. Anna glanced up as David entered the room. "Morning," she said softly. The single word carried warmth in it, not just heat from the stove. Something more human, more personal. "Morning," he replied. Luke's eyes lit up when he saw him. "Dad, Anna is teaching me how to make bread from scratch." "That's dangerous," David said. "You might get too good at it and end up running a bakery." "I'd eat all the profits," Luke declared proudly. Emma giggled, a sound that had been rare these past 2 years. Anna smiled at them like their happiness fed something inside her that had been starving for far too long. "The storm stopped," she said, turning back to the pot on the stove. "But the roads, they'll be bad. Might be a few days before you can safely leave." "A few days." Those words settled strange in David's chest. He should have felt urgency, responsibility, logic, telling him to figure out a way out to find help. But another part of him, a quiet, forbidden part, felt immense relief. A few more days of warmth, a few more days of safety, a few more days where his children looked like children again, instead of small survivors of grief. He nodded slowly. Then we're grateful for your hospitality a little longer. You're not a burden, Anna said gently without turning around. You're guests. Guests? The word carried respect in it. Not pity, not charity, just human decency. She handed everyone a bowl of warm porridge, topped with a drizzle of honey. It wasn't a grand breakfast, but the way the children ate it, you'd think it was a feast fit for royalty. He studied her while they ate, the way her brow furrowed slightly when she measured ingredients, the faint scar on her wrist, barely visible beneath the sleeve of her sweater, the careful way she moved, as though she'd learned to rely on herself for a very long time. You live out here year-round? He finally asked. She paused for a half-second before nodding. Yes. Isn't it dangerous? Her lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. Most things are dangerous when you're alone long enough. He didn't know what to say to that, because he understood it too well. Outside, the sun crept over the tree line, casting everything in blinding, untouched white. The world sparkled as if the storm had never happened. A lie nature told very convincingly. I should check the truck, he said. Anna set the bowl down. I'll come with you. The children wanted to go too, but the cold was still sharp and unforgiving. No, David said gently. You two stay here. Help Anna. Do whatever it is she lets you do. Teach us more bread things, Luke suggested. Anna chuckled. I think I can manage that. He nodded, then stepped outside with her. The cold slapped him immediately, even in the pale daylight. The snow rose almost to his knees as they trudged to the road. His truck looked small, buried, defeated. He opened the hood. It was worse than he'd imagined. Frozen lines, dead battery, snow where it never should be. It's not moving today, he muttered. Probably not tomorrow either, she said calmly, as if that didn't bother her. You're very okay with this. She looked past the trees, into the endless forest. I'm used to things taking longer than planned. He studied her from the corner of his eye. Did someone leave you out here, Anna? She didn't answer right away. I came here myself, she said finally. But that doesn't mean I didn't hope someone would find me. The honesty in her voice gripped him. He turned toward her. And now we have. Yes, she whispered. For a long moment the world went quiet again. No wind, no voices, just their breathing in the frigid air. He broke the stillness first. We should dig out the tires anyway. Prepare for when the road's clear. They spent the rest of the morning shoveling, pushing, brushing snow away from the truck, their movements slowly finding a rhythm together. A silent teamwork that came strangely natural. Every time their hands brushed, sparks of something unfamiliar fluttered between them. Fear, hope, confusion, awareness. When they returned to the cabin, the children greeted them like they'd been gone for days. Emma had braided a tiny section of Anna's hair. Luke had flour on his eyebrows. Anna laughed harder than David had heard her laugh in a very long time. The sound filled the cabin like bright sunlight. You two are trouble, she said. Good trouble, Emma corrected. David suddenly realized something that made his heart ache. Emma hadn't said a word about her mother all morning. Not once. She had spoken only of Anna, of baking, of stories Anna had told her, of the little wooden animals carved on the shelf. In the afternoon, the storm clouds returned briefly, this time only dropping light snow. Anna lit the lamp near the window, despite it not yet being dark. David noticed. You keep that lit even during the day? Yes. Why? She hesitated, her eyes resting on the small, steady flame. It reminds people, she said quietly, that someone is still here, still alive, still waiting to be seen. The word struck him deeper than he expected. Outside everything was so silent, it almost felt like the world had stopped breathing. Inside, the cabin was filled with small sounds. Pages turning, wood settling, children whispering. Anna pulled an old photo album from a small chest. She sat on the floor with Emma resting against her side, Luke in her lap, and slowly opened the pages. Was this your family? Emma asked, touching a faded picture. That was my brother, Anna said softly. When we were children. Where is he now? Luke asked. He's out there somewhere, she answered. Not quite sadly, not quite hopefully. Living a life different from mine. David watched as she turned the pages, each image holding a memory of the life she had left behind, or that had left her behind. Later, as dusk wrapped around the trees again, Anna prepared a simple stew. This time she let Emma drop the herbs in. She let Luke stir. She let David cut the vegetables. It felt natural, frighteningly natural. They sat together at the table, the four of them, steam rising from their bowls. "Do you ever regret it?" David asked gently. "Living out here alone?" She considered the question thoughtfully. "Every single day," she said. "And also, not at all." Luke tilted his head. "That doesn't make sense." "It does when you're grown," she replied with a small smile. David saw something in her eyes at that moment. Not just pain, strength, experience, patience. Someone who could love deeply, if given the chance, and someone who had learned how to survive when that love was taken away. Later that night, while the children slept peacefully in the small bedroom, David and Anna sat together by the fire, not talking, just listening to its quiet crackle. He noticed her hands resting in her lap. "They look used to work," he said softly. "They are. I built half of this place with them." "Including that wolf carving?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "He's the guardian. I thought wolves were dangerous." "They only show teeth to strangers," she replied, her glance lifting to meet his. The silence between them thickened. "Anna?" He started but stopped. "What?" she asked quietly. He looked toward the dark window, the glowing lamp, the lonely world outside. "I don't know when the road will clear," he said. "But I know this. My children already trust you." Her eyes softened. "And what about you?" she asked. He turned back to her. "I think I do too, and that scares me." The honesty in his voice made her inhale sharply, as if he'd brushed against a wound she'd hidden even from herself. "Don't be afraid of it," she whispered. "Being afraid of warmth is how you freeze from the inside out." Their eyes held for a long, silent moment, as the fire flickered and painted gold across their faces. Two broken worlds, slowly warming each other again. Outside, the night crept over the Alaskan wilderness. Inside, the smallest beginnings of something new quietly took root. The third day began in a strange kind of quiet. The storm had finally released its grip on the land. The trees stood still, frozen in time, their heavy branches bowed under the weight of white. The sky had cleared during the night, leaving behind a pale blue morning and a sun that glinted over the snow like a promise. But inside the cabin there was a tension that hadn't been there before. Not danger, something deeper, something unspoken. David woke early again. The fire had burnt low in the hearth, and the air was cool but not brutal. He could hear Anna's soft movements in the kitchen, the careful pouring of water, the light clink of a mug, the familiar sound of a spoon stirring. He sat up and watched her for a moment without her knowing. She wore a faded flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up. Her hair was loose now, falling around her shoulders in dark waves. For the first time he noticed that the ends of her hair were uneven, as if she'd once taken scissors to them herself. A woman used to doing everything alone. And yet here she was, moving quietly so she wouldn't wake two small children who weren't even hers. "Morning," she said without turning around. "Morning," he replied softly. "You don't sleep heavy." "Neither do you." She glanced back at him. There was a faint smile in her eyes, but also a question she wasn't brave enough to ask. "How are the kids?" she asked instead. He checked the small doorway to the back room. Emma and Luke were still tangled together under the quilt, breathing softly, peaceful. "They look happier than they have in a long time." Her lips pressed together gently at that. Not pride, not relief, something else. "Grief? Hope? Both? Coffee?" she asked, pouring into a mug. "Yes, please." Their fingers brushed again when she handed it to him. This time neither pulled away. The touch lingered, just for a second longer than normal, long enough to change the air between them. She pulled her hand back slowly. "You'll try the truck again today," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," something flickered in her eyes, too quick to read. He drank the coffee, letting the warmth slide through his chest. He wanted to say something, to ask something. About her, about him, about the unspoken ache growing in the space between them. But the children chose that moment to wake. "Anna!" Luke's voice rang out from the bedroom. I had a dream there was a bear, and it kissed me instead of eating me. Emma's softer laugh followed. Anna's face softened instantly. Well, that sounds like a very polite bear, she replied. Luke came running out, hair in every direction, his tired fox under his arm. Emma followed, still wrapped in the quilt like a tiny ghost. What are we doing today? Emma asked. David looked at Anna. Anna looked at the children, and said the words that made his chest tighten. Whatever we want. The simplicity of it. The freedom in it. They stepped outside into the untouched snow. Anna showed them how to build strong walls, how to pack the base, how to carve a doorway. Before long, the children were building a small fortress out of snow, laughing, shouting, chasing each other with handfuls of white. David stood back for a moment watching. Luke tackled a pile of snow. Emma tried to make a tiny snowman family. And Anna joined them, her laugh ringing through the trees. It wasn't cautious laughter now. It was real. It had been buried somewhere deep inside her for years, and it was his children that had brought it back. You could get used to this, Anna said quietly as she walked up beside him. Yeah, he answered. That's what scares me. She didn't laugh this time. I stopped letting myself get used to good things a long time ago, she said. He looked at her, cold on her cheeks, eyes bright with reflected sunlight, breath making small clouds between them. What happened? He asked gently. She exhaled slowly, her gaze drifting back to the trees. I wasn't always alone out here, she began quietly. I had someone. Once. We planned to build a life in a town near the coast. Little house, garden, children. She swallowed. He left on a supply run one winter, and never came back. David lowered his eyes, feeling the weight of it. They found the truck weeks later, she continued. Buried, empty. I never found him. No body. No goodbye, just absence. I'm sorry, David whispered. So I came here, she said. If I was going to wait for life to find me again, I was going to be in a place where silence at least made sense. He understood that. Deeply, far too deeply. My wife died in a hospital room, he said, voice rough. But sometimes, the silence she left behind felt just as loud as yours. Anna turned to him slowly. They were not two strangers anymore. They were two survivors standing in the wreckage of different storms. Henry and Emma. Now David and Anna. Two paths, one same pain. I never thought I'd want this again, she murmured. What? He asked. This feeling. Like there's something to lose again. He didn't answer. Words felt too small. The moment was broken by the children racing toward them, snow flying in every direction. Dad, Emma shouted. Anna taught us how to make snow angels. Luke jumped down beside her. We made one for Mom, too. For a split second, the world stopped. David froze. Emma instantly clamped her mouth shut, realizing what she'd said. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. I didn't mean... He forced a soft smile. It's okay, he said, kneeling to her level. She'd like that. She'd like that very much. Anna turned away, but he saw her quietly wipe her eye. Later that afternoon, David went out again to the road. The truck still wouldn't start, but it looked closer. With a little work, a little help from town, it could be fixed. Which meant, soon, they would leave. The thought hit him like a physical blow. He walked back toward the cabin, slower than necessary. Inside, Anna was cutting slices of bread. Emma sat beside her drawing something on a piece of old paper. Luke was carving a tiny figure with a blunt knife under her careful supervision. What are you making? He asked his daughter. She turned the paper toward him. It was their truck. It was the cabin. It was Anna, standing between him and Luke, all of them holding hands. A family made in pencil. You'll leave soon, won't you? Anna asked quietly without looking at him. Yes, when? Maybe tomorrow. Or the next day. A long silence fell. Emma's pencil stopped moving. Luke looked up at Anna instead of at him. It's too quiet in here for that kind of answer, she said softly. Dinner that night was quieter than the others. He noticed the way Anna avoided his eyes now, the way she kept her voice focused only on the children, as if that was safer. After the children went to bed, David stepped outside. The sky was a carpet of stars, sharp and endless. Anna followed him. The road will be safe to pass by morning, she said. I know. You'll go back to your life. Yes, to his cabin, his silence, his memories. And you, he said, turning slowly, you will stay here. Alone again. She dropped her gaze. I'm used to it, David. He stepped closer. That doesn't mean it's what you deserve. Her breathing quickened slightly. And what about what you deserve? She whispered. A woman you just met in a storm? No, he said. I deserve to stop running from life. She lifted her eyes to him then. Moonlight danced in them. You don't even know me, she murmured. I know you lit a lamp for people you'd never meet. I know you fed my children without question. I know you carried pain and still chose kindness. He stepped closer. That's enough for me to stop pretending I don't need you. The air between them was razor thin now. He could feel the warmth of her breath, the tremble in her hands. David, it was a warning, a name and a plea. He rested his forehead gently against hers. Say the word, he whispered, and I'll walk away at sunrise. I won't make this harder on you. Her eyes closed. Her hand came up slowly and gripped his jacket. Don't go, she said barely above a breath. The world seemed to hold still at those two words. His arms wrapped around her as if memory itself had driven them there, like they had known this shape before in another life. She didn't cry. She didn't pull away. She held him the way someone holds the last piece of warmth in an endless winter. And in that moment, both of them knew. No storm had brought them here. Fate had. Sunrise came quietly. No wind, no storm, just a pale ribbon of gold stretching across the frozen woods. David had not slept. Not really. He sat on the small wooden chair near the window, watching the faint light grow stronger, listening to the slow, steady breathing of two children in the back room, and the soft, restless movements of Anna in the loft above. They hadn't spoken after he held her. After she whispered, "Don't go." No promises had been made. No plans had been spoken. But everything had already changed. He rose quietly and stepped outside. The world looked untouched now, like a painting made of white and blue. His truck still waited on the road, half buried, patient. Beyond it, the path back to his old life waited too. Quiet, empty, predictable. He didn't want it. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid to admit that. Footsteps crunched behind him in the snow. "Morning," Anna said softly. He turned. She had wrapped a thick shawl around her shoulders. Her hair hung loose, catching light from the rising sun. "Morning," he replied. They stood a few feet apart, neither crossing the distance yet, both understanding how fragile this moment was. "The storm is over," she said, though they both already knew. "Yes, and the road will be passable. Yes, you could leave within the hour. Yes." Their eyes locked. "But you're still here," she whispered. "Yes." The honesty hung between them, visible as breath in the cold air. Finally, he walked toward her. "There's a town about 40 miles from here," he said quietly. "There's a mechanic, a store, a school. My cabin is another 20 miles beyond that. Not much, but it was home for a while." "And?" she asked. "It isn't home anymore." Her eyes searched his face for doubt, for fear. "Come with us," he said. "Not just for today, not just because of the storm, but because we want you to." Anna inhaled sharply. "You don't even know what kind of trouble I could be," she whispered. "I have 2 children. I'm already used to chaos." The slightest smile touched her lips. "And when the reality hits you? When this feels too fast? Too heavy? Then we'll face it together. I'm tired of surviving alone." Silence filled the space around them. Then she nodded. Once, slow, certain. "All right," she said. "But I'm not going to be a guest in your life, David." "You won't be," he replied. "You'll be part of it." Inside, Emma and Luke were awake. They stood at the doorway watching. "Are we leaving?" Luke asked hesitantly. "Soon," David said gently. Emma looked at Anna. "Is she coming too?" A pause, a heartbeat suspended in air. Anna knelt in the snow in front of them. If your dad is sure," she said softly, "then yes. I'd like to come with you." Emma launched herself straight into Anna's arms. Luke followed instantly. They clung to her as if their hearts had made this decision long before their minds had. "Good," Emma said simply, "because it feels like you're supposed to be with us." Anna's eyes filled as she hugged them close. David watched his children, wrapped around her, and realized something with painful clarity. They had already chosen her. He was the only one catching up. The next few hours were filled with motion. They packed the few things Anna owned into the truck. Her blankets, her books, her herbs, the small wooden wolf, the photo album, and finally the lamp from the window. "You don't have to take that," he said. "Yes, I do," she replied gently. It found its meaning again. "With you," he smiled. With a borrowed battery from a tool shed near the back of the cabin, the truck finally roared to life. The sound echoed through the empty woods like a second chance being granted. They stood for one last moment on the porch. Anna looked around the little cabin. The silent trees. The fading traces of a life lived alone. "Goodbye," she whispered, not to the building, but to the years she had spent inside her own sorrow. Then she turned and climbed into the truck, sitting between Emma and Luke in the back seat. David watched them in the mirror as he pulled away. The road stretched forward, open and bright, but the past no longer tugged at him. The town was small, but warm. News of the storm and the stranded man had traveled faster than expected. A mechanic, an older man with oil-stained hands and kind eyes, helped get David's truck running fully again. "You're lucky," the man said, eyeing Anna and the children. "Most men come through here and only find trouble. You found a blessing." David glanced back at the three of them standing together. "I know," he said quietly. "I absolutely know. They bought supplies, fresh clothes, simple food, a small toy for Luke, new coloring pencils for Emma. But what mattered most didn't come in bags. It sat beside him." Days turned into a week. The snow slowly melted into slush and then into earth again. Anna's presence in the cabin transformed it in ways David could never have prepared for. Windows opened. Laughter traveled through walls. The sound of feet moving through rooms that had long forgotten joy. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the trees, Anna stood by the same window that once held her solitary lamp. But now, it illuminated faces laughing in the yard. It illuminated life. David stepped up behind her. "You brought the light with you," he said. She shook her head. "No, you and the kids were already carrying it. I just remembered how to see it again." Later that night, as they sat together and listened to the quiet breathing of the world around them, Emma tugged gently at Anna's sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. "Of course," Anna replied. "Can I call you and Mama?" Anna's breath caught. Her eyes found David. He didn't hesitate. He nodded. Tears gathered silently as she pulled Emma into her arms. "I'd be honored," she whispered. Luke climbed in beside them, curling into her warm side. "Mama?" he said, trying out the word as if it belonged to him forever. Outside, the moon rose over Alaska. Cold, vast, beautiful. But inside that small, once lonely cabin, there was no storm, no darkness, only warmth, only belonging, only home. And in the soft glow of the burning lamp beside the window, one truth shone stronger than any other. Sometimes you don't get lost in a storm. Sometimes the storm finally leads you home.